That's right. You're listening to another episode of the co-main event mixed martial arts podcast. I'm Chad Dundas. That's Ben Folks. We're both longtime MMA journalists, and for nearly the last 14 years, we've been meeting here every week to break down all the action in the wild, weird, and occasionally wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Ben, full disclosure, you had a root canal today. Is that what I'm to understand?
That is correct.
You had a root canal. I have a bad cold.
That's why we can hear the clicking of your cough drop just
If it
right up
sounds
there
like
against the mic.
If I have a cough drop in my mouth, it's only so I can get through this. We're built different, man. We shouldn't be here today, but we are built different.
Let me tell you something wild about going to get this root canal. First of all, I tried it out today. Somebody almost changed lanes into me as I'm driving over there to this dentist surgery place. No turn signal, just almost merges right into me. And I said out loud in my car, "You absolute helmet."
Okay.
I was trying it on, Chad. I was trying it on. I was like, is Paddy Pimblett on to something? I wanted to see how it feels to call someone an absolute helmet. I got to tell you, Chad, it felt amazing. It felt real good. I think this could become a part of the repertoire. I see no reason why I can't help spearhead the project to get people in Missoula, Montana calling each other absolute helmets. I feel like if I am ever in a position to shout out an insult where somebody else would hear it, I feel like it would be a great mix of like baffling, but also, as somebody pointed out to me on Twitter when I made this point about calling an absolute helmet, if you put absolute in front of almost anything, in that context, it is going to sufficiently come off as an insult. Like if I call you, an absolute cake eater, I call you Chad Dundas, you absolute banana. You know that's not good. I'm not saying anything positive about you. You can pick that up. And honestly, I just feel like it has really opened things up for me insult wise. And Patrick Angus Pimblett has opened my eyes. I have seen the glory now.
Sure. What you're talking about here is Paddy Pimblett referring to Arman Sarukian last week as an absolute helmet.
Absolute helmet. Then anyway, Ted, I go in there, I get this damn root canal. This guy gonna say to me at the end of it, he's showing me the x-rays and showing me how the root canal looks, and he's like, this side looks really good. This side, there's like a little millimeter more I wish we could have got to. What I'd like to do is do it again.
What?
Have you come back another day and do? And I was like, you mean take out everything that's in there now that you've done, do the whole process over again? He was like, yeah. And I was just like, my man, we are not going to be doing that. We're not going to be doing that, Chad. We did this thing. That was your shot. And he was just like, he's like, I'm a perfectionist. I feel like this is good. I want it to be great. And I was just like, but did you say good? Did you say it'll probably be okay? Because if so, I'm walking out of here, my man. And I hope we never see each other again, at least not in this context. So that was my experience. I'm coming down off of my my numbing agents now. It's starting to feel a little bit more like I did have dental surgery earlier today, but I'm gonna rise above it. I'm gonna power through as you are with the help of a clicking cough drop and a weirdly sparse yet golden room that you find yourself in here. You seem to move locations every single time we record this now.
I'm just trying to find the perfect place, man.
I don't know if this is it, but now we can check it off the list.
This is all I got for right now. I can't claim to even know what a root canal is.
See, I still don't know. I asked two different, like the first dentist who sent me over there. First of all, I'd had this filling that was kind of starting to come loose a little bit. I go in for a cleaning yesterday, routine every 6 months cleaning. And I mentioned to the dental hygienist, I was like, I got this thing that's kind of coming out, so be careful around it. The dentist had told me, like, we want to try to slow play this one a little bit. So let's try to work around that a little bit. And she is in there doing the cleanings and she's working in that area. And then she says out loud, "Oh no." And I was just like, don't ever say, "Oh no." This is like working somebody's corner.
Who are these dentists that you're going to? You got somebody's rooting around in your mouth, and then they're like, "Oh shit." And then you got the other guy being like, you know what? We got to do this again. We got to run this back. Who are you? Get some new people is what it sounds like to me.
It's like you're working somebody's corner. They come back, they're bleeding from a spot in their face. They sit down on the stool, and the cut man goes, "Oh, holy shit. No, no, man, that's not what we want to be doing out here. We need to be playing it a little cooler." So yeah, then the guy was just like, "You're gonna need to have root canal," and I was like, "Okay, obviously I've heard this term root canal before. I don't know what it is." He said some words to me then that did not help me really understand what it is. I asked the guy again today. He said some different words, and I was just like, "Okay, maybe I'm just never gonna feel like I have my hands all wrapped around this one, but that's okay." And as usual, anytime you're in one of these settings and you have to try people making small talk with you, you have to try to explain what you do, and you're trying to communicate to these people from this other world. Yeah, hey, look, man, I got to be on my A game because it's UFC 324 week. We're starting back up again. The long winter slumber is over, and I gotta say, Chad, I was just looking just to sort of do a quick little napkin math, back of the envelope math, where I was just like, all right, what am I paying now for Paramount Plus? I'm paying $8.99. Man, I had forgotten because ESPN had successfully got me into a set it and forget it mode. But even just on the price of the subscription, you're already saving money. It's $12.99 to get that ESPN Plus now. I don't know if you were aware. And then they're going to tack on $80 on top of it to the pay-per-view. Like, the way the Trump administration does their math, I feel like costs for a UFC pay-per-view have gone down by 900%. I'm not totally sure. 800, 900%, it feels like. So, honestly, once I started to do some of the math on that, I was just like, honestly, you could put out some shittier shows. And I'll still be like, all right, hey, $8.99. I can roll with it.
You're just talking about a better value proposition.
Yeah.
You're not paying. It could be whatever. They could give you whatever.
I mean, at least for a little while, that feeling is going to stick with me. It'll be interesting to see how deep into the Paramount era we get before it starts to wear off, and we all take for granted that, hey, this shit costs $8.99 a month. And if we don't feel like we're getting our money's worth out of that, if the new Landman episodes aren't hitting the way they're supposed to, we'll see how we end up feeling about Paramount by the end. Mostly what I'm going to be interested to find out is, does their fucking streaming app work? Because if it does, if it works at all, if it works even a little bit, then you're already ahead of ESPN's broke ass.
Yeah. Well, you said it all when you said it. We got UFC 324 this weekend, marking the first numbered event on Paramount Plus, the first event of the PLE era in the UFC. This is the beginning of the multi-year deal over there, a major shift in how we're all going to consume this product, at least for the time being. I was going to ask, what's your hype level overall? I know that you just told us about a bunch of stuff that you're looking forward to, mostly pocketbook-wise, economically, at the folks' home. But what about the rest of it? The first event on a new platform, sort of a fresh start, if you will, for the UFC. I don't know how many changes we are going to see, but at the same time, what are we looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, thinking about this, I expect the broadcast for the most part to look and feel pretty much the same, because it really looked and felt pretty much the same when we went from Spike to Fox to ESPN. Part of the UFC's almost tyrannical control of their own broadcast and control of their own product means that it does not shift that much when you go to a different platform, because they have, I think, wisely held such strict control over it. That made a whole lot of sense, especially in those early days of MMA, where you couldn't trust some TV partner to come in there and do your shit. They might not understand the sport or its fans. They might be trying to make it fit into a mold that it doesn't belong in. It was very smart of the UFC to keep that. And it makes it so that when they transition from one thing to another, you kind of can't tell that much, other than graphics, or we might do, some how we talk between fights, that part might change a little bit, but a lot of the other parts of the experience I expect to stay largely the same. I think that my main questions are going to be about what the overall quality of cards looks like going forward, because we talked about this a little last week. If you just look at what we have announced so far for the first part of 2026, it's not blowing your hair back. Not even a lot of title fights. You lost Amanda Nunes and Kayla Harrison. That really, you couldn't do anything about that. That was just sort of the breaks. That's how it goes sometimes in MMA. But for the stuff you have on the books right now, you don't have a ton that jumps out at you and you go like, this is going to be awesome. This is huge stuff. Now, whether that's because, hey, we ain't got to try that hard when we're getting that guaranteed bag to the tune of $1 billion a year from Paramount, or whether it's because we're holding fights back to make the White House event awesome, the way Donald Trump already told everybody we were. I don't know. I think we're gonna have to wait and see on some of that shit. But it is also, it's going to be interesting to look and you see, like, are you going to see a drop off? Is MMA going to become a little more invisible when you're not on ESPN anymore, when you're on Paramount Plus, when you kind of have to already know in order to know? I see they get some ads on the CBS football games. You know, we hype it up a little bit, including, I don't know if you were watching any of these playoff games of the past weekend, Chad, but they showed some UFC 324 ads, and at one point they referred to Paddy Pimblett as undefeated. Now, I don't know what your understanding of that term is. Mine has always been that he has 0 professional losses, which is not the case with Patrick Angeles Pimblett. He has 0 losses in the UFC.
Yeah, maybe they just forgot to say that part. Maybe they forgot to say that part.
Chadifer.
Well, if you're accusing the UFC of puffery, of immoral publicity practices, I don't believe it. I just don't believe they would do that.
Is this the shit we feel like we can get away with to the CBS mainstream audience? You know, they don't know any better. We'll tell them Paddy Pimblett's undefeated. We'll tell them that this is the fight between the 2 best lightweights on the planet, and they will believe it because what the fuck do you know? You just came here to watch the Buffalo Bills. You know, I don't know. I will be interested to see if there is any sort of shift in that regard. I'm also interested. We talked a little bit. You and I were, I think, were both surprised when the betting line on this main event came out and Paddy Pimblett was a favorite. A not huge favorite, but a not inconsiderable favorite. And when you hear Justin Gaethje talk, I've heard him talk in some of these interviews where he's just like, I'm just excited to kick this kid's ass, man. I'm going to beat this guy's ass. And, you know, of course, that is what Justin Gaethje would say. It's what you would expect of him. But I almost felt like, am I too impressionable? Because if the odds had come out and Justin Gaethje had been a minus 200 favorite, I would have thought, yeah, no, that sounds about right. And if he was saying, I'm going to beat this guy's ass, I would be like, yeah, you probably are. You probably are going to beat this guy's ass. But then when you come out and the people who, they got to know, their whole shit is based on knowing who is more likely to win these fights. And they say, we're thinking it's probably Pimblett. I go, is Justin Gaethje just about done? Is he on the decline and I'm just slow to see it because I have enjoyed watching him fight for so many years? Because in my brain, I've got the message somehow, Paddy Pimblett is not good even though he keeps winning. Justin Gaethje is good even though he loses some big ones. Like, is that just a perception problem for me?
Yeah, it does make you wonder, and I feel this too, it does make you wonder, am I becoming the guy from my gym who came up to me and said he couldn't wait to see Mike Tyson beat the shit out of Jake Paul? On a much smaller scale.
Extreme example, but okay.
On a much smaller scale, am I becoming that guy? I looked this morning, DraftKings, Paddy Pimblett is still minus 230. Minus 230 favorite over Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje plus 190. So still pretty good value to be had if you wanted to put some money on Justin Gaethje right now. And it still seems strange to me, man, but we have noted this over on the Patreon, on our other properties. Anybody who listens to the shows over there knows that we are terrible at gambling.
We make this shit look difficult.
Maybe the odds makers have it right. It seems like they know more often than not these days who the favorite is and who the underdog is and who is more likely to win these things. But if Paddy Pimblett just goes out there and blows through Justin Gaethje, man, I got to be honest, I will be surprised.
Okay, let's say I have come back from the near future and my brain is melted by time travel. I'm disheveled. I cannot explain coherently how it happened, but I breathlessly grab you by the front of your lapel and I yell, Chad, Paddy Pimblett beat Justin Gaethje to become UFC interim champ. And then I pass out into like a pool of jelly or whatever. What would you think? How would you think the method? How did he get there? If you assume that Paddy Pimblett wins, how? Chart the path for me, Chad.
I mean, it doesn't seem like he's beating him on the feet, right?
You wouldn't think so, right?
I mean, maybe Justin Gaethje gets overextended, gets a little wild, a little bit on the reckless side. Paddy Pimblett manages to put him on the mat, gets on his back and chokes him. I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know what the most likely path to victory for Paddy Pimblett is here. And it's just, and that's maybe that's a little bit what scares me. Is that I'm looking at this thing thinking, I feel like Justin Gaethje wins this. What is it that I'm not taking into account? What is it that I don't know here? Do I not even know how much I don't know? Paddy Pimblett just tapped out by a calf slicer in his own gym. We put it on the internet. That guy,
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje should be fighting that guy for the interim title, for all we know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Justin Gaethje ain't calf slicering nobody. So I don't know what Justin Gaethje wants to do. And that is the thing, is that like I do think in some ways Paddy Pimblett has the edge in that you know exactly who you're going to fight in Justin Gaethje. You know what he does. His game is out there for anybody to see. There's never been a whole lot of trickery in Justin Gaethje's game. He is the equivalent of like a high school football team that's going to come in here and they're going to run dive left or they're going to run dive right. And that's kind of it. And you have an opportunity where you can work with that. You can scout that. I think Max Holloway did a really good job of it. He had Justin Gaethje scouted pretty well, and he was able to really capitalize on that in a few big moments that swung that fight for him. You know Justin Gaethje is going to be tough. You know he's going to come at you. You know he's going to be throwing them things. And so, like, I do think maybe there's an opportunity for Paddy Pimblett to do something with that. It just seems like, do you tell yourself, like, all right, we're gonna fight this one on the feet, and that's where we're gonna beat Justin Gaethje? Because Paddy Pimblett, if I was coming up with the graphic that we show about him before the fight, I would describe him as an improved striker. His striking has improved. He's not out here on some Vitor Belfort no known weaknesses shit. You know, there are some paths to victory that we have seen that people looked like a slightly better fighter could have really taken advantage of. And so that, I guess, would kind of worry me there. I also wondered, I was like, already people within the bubble, they're going to look a little bit askance at this interim title fight. Just the state of the division being what it is. We know who the real champ of the division is. We know it's only a matter of time until daddy comes home and sets the house in order. And we also know that you reach down past the actual numerical number one contender and the consensus agreed upon top contender in the division in order to make this fight. So you're already looking at a legitimacy problem a little bit. You're looking at
you're going to have calf slicered.
You're looking at a little bit of like is a guy just going to be a paper champion no matter who it is? I feel like if Justin Gaethje were to go out there and knock out Paddy Pimblett and we say interim champ Justin Gaethje, people, while they still won't be like, that is the best lightweight walking the earth today, they still won't say that, but they'll be a little bit more accepting of it. They'll be a little bit more like, all right, Justin Gaethje has been there. He's been around the top for a while now. I've gotten used to the idea of Justin Gaethje as one of the world's best lightweights. He finally made it happen. The same way we were happy for Dustin Poirier when he got a version of a UFC title, even if we didn't think of it as the UFC title. I think people will feel that way about Justin Gaethje. If Paddy goddamn Pimblett wins, I think there will be a whole lot of people being like, how did it come to this? How did Paddy Pimblett end up as a UFC lightweight champion? And maybe some of that is just like big personality, going to force people to feel one way or another about him. And some people have managed to still just be like, I don't care how many fights he wins. I still think Paddy Pimblett sucks, and goes out there with his Ringo Starr haircut and is beating people. And I feel like maybe people will have a harder time accepting a reality. They wake up Sunday morning, Paddy Pimblett, the UFC interim lightweight champion.
Man, don't get me in trouble again. I got in trouble last week because I read off the list of UFC lightweight champions. And then I mentioned the name Patrick Pimblett and asked if he belonged on that list. Because it's not heavyweight, man. Some guy can't fuck around, win 2 fights, slip on a banana peel, become champion. This is lightweight. We have high standards down here at 155 pounds. And to me, right now, Paddy Pimblett doesn't feel like he should be on that list. Some people got mad at me. They got mad at me for saying it.
They felt like you had a little bit of extra vitriol when you talked about Paddy Pimblett.
I'm just saying this guy doesn't belong on the list right now. Just hasn't done enough to be on that list yet. Whereas we would see it as Justin Gaethje, a nice little capper for the career, right? He's been interim champ once. This would be a feather in the cap, but a little, cherry on top of the sundae for him as he finishes out the twilight of his career. I saw Brian Campbell over on CBS floating the idea, asking the question, I guess you could say, is Paddy Pimblett essentially fighting this weekend to be the face of the Paramount Plus era, at least for right now, right? We mentioned last week on the Power Hour over on the Patreon page, only one of 11 UFC champions has a fight scheduled at the moment, and it's Volkanovski, right? It's Volkanovski against Lopez. With Kayla Harrison's injury, 0 other champions as of this moment officially have a fight on the books. And as you mentioned, whether or not that means we're holding the gold out for the White House show or whatever, we don't know. But that's 6 months away, man. That's 6 months away right now.
Yeah.
And so if Paddy Pimblett wins this fight this weekend, is he sort of the de facto immediate star for the UFC in that, if indeed that kind of metric even matters anymore?
Yeah, well, I mean, the UFC would seem to be hoping so, right? Because why else do you make this fight as your interim title fight? When you had other options, you could have done, Arman Sarukian versus Justin Gaethje if you wanted to. You could have done fights that would have felt like a more legitimate or expected interim title fight. And instead to reach down for Paddy Pimblett, it does signal to us you were going for something different other than just guys who have unquestionably earned the right. You were going for personality, character, and maybe somebody they have an existing fan base that they can help bring to this event. That's clearly what you're going for. And so the UFC seems to be counting on that. The extent to which they actually care, though, the extent to which it makes any sort of difference for the UFC, I think is a lot more minor. I think it's a kind of still a little bit of an afterthought. I was thinking about this today. Dominic Cruz was on Ariel's show earlier today. I don't know if you saw this. And he was saying, being asked about the fighters now losing pay-per-view and pay-per-view revenues as part of what they can hope to get as champion. Conor McGregor has already been out there saying he feels like his contract has been nullified by the removal of pay-per-view, since pay-per-view was such a huge part of how he got paid from the UFC. Right. So he'd need a new contract. Most other fighters, read pretty much every other fighter, is not in a position to be able to demand a renegotiation from the UFC. They're kind of hoping for some sort of renegotiation or hoping for a little bit of a sweetener to be thrown on top of it. But Dominic Cruz was like, I don't know how they're going to do it, because pay-per-view was the only way I ever cracked $1 million, was when I was champ on a card, and that also happened to have Ronda Rousey on it. And that's how I was able to get into that next tier. And that's what you've been promising these guys. That's what the championship means to a whole lot of people, is not just being able to walk around and say I'm the baddest dude at this weight on the planet, but also that's where you make the real money. Everything else is you're working up from criminally underpaid for a professional athlete to doing okay. But in order to get that real, actually have yourself taken care of after fighting kind of money, you kind of needed the pay-per-view. You needed to get into that zone. And now that zone is gone. And their contracts still have the same language in it. You're still making you were telling yourself, all right, hey, even if I'm a top contender and I'm making, 100K and 100K before everybody else takes their cuts and taxes and all that, I know it's not really what I should be making in another major sport if I were at this level of it. But when I get the championship, I'm going to get millions from pay-per-view money. And now that dream is all the way fucking dead. Yeah. So what do you give those guys to compensate for it? Knowing the UFC as I do, having paid attention to this company for years, don't you think that the most likely thing they do is to give you a little bit of an increase so you feel you got that? I think also holding it and being like a discretionary increase. We don't want to put it on paper that we got to pay you this. You do a good job, we'll take care of you after the event on the back end, the way the UFC has operated for a long, long time. So where for the fighters, it doesn't feel like, hey, they went in, they changed the language of your contract so you get 75K more each fight. It feels like you were fighting for the same amount of money, and then 6 weeks after the fight, you get a check for 50K in the mail, and you go, oh, holy shit, I'm jumping up and down. I'm saying, thank you, Dana. Baby, we done it.
Yeah.
That seems like the most likely outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably be some manner of like championship bonus, right? They'll be like,
but even that won't be $1 million, you know?
No, it won't. No, it won't.
And they'll probably be counting on the fact that Dominic Cruz is sitting around here saying, this is how pay-per-view worked back in my day. But there are not that many guys left on the roster who really got to taste the fruits of the pay-per-view tree.
Yeah.
In a meaningful way. Because pay-per-view has been going down for years. The cuts of pay-per-view have getting smaller because ESPN is kind of price gouging people on it. Fewer people are buying the pay-per-views. You made zero headway into digital piracy. And you got a younger and younger fan base that were more tech savvy and comfortable with digital piracy. So that money has already been going down. You helped kill the pay-per-view market. And so now you're saying, hey, it's not a big deal for the pay-per-view market to go away. And there's not enough fighters who ever got to know a different reality. The ones that are still around won't be around that much longer. And so you're kind of just going to rely, I think, on these guys won't know. They won't know it used to be better. The same way they don't know that people used to get $50,000 for wearing a Condom Depot hat. They didn't live those days, so they don't really understand how bad they're getting screwed by your $2,500 Venom fight kit outfitting pay. And I think it's probably going to work. It's probably going to work on those fighters.
The Conor McGregor thing is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, he made these comments while he was playing Roblox. Wasn't he playing Roblox with his kid and with a streamer online, and he made some offhand comments about his contract?
I did not know that part. I know that there was a sleepover at my house this weekend in which our daughters were both playing Roblox. And so it is interesting to think that they might have encountered Conor McGregor on there. It makes me a little bit worried.
Hope to God that our daughters or anyone else's daughters ever encounter Conor McGregor on Roblox. But obviously, like Conor McGregor is one of the few guys that could potentially make an issue of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's Conor McGregor. We think that he has 1 or 2 fights left on his existing UFC contract. So proclaiming that it's void because he's not getting pay-per-view points anymore is probably questionable. And yet, if you're talking about a guy who could have some negotiating power with the UFC, a guy who could potentially, in theory, make a legal challenge to his contract if he wanted to, it's probably Conor McGregor. And yet, kind of would, if I was the UFC, I would kind of feel like, no, we need to like make a little bit of a stand here. We can't, even though he's Conor McGregor, we can't be being like, all right, well, we will offset those losses in kind, Because if we start doing that, maybe then we're giving up a little bit more money than we want to these other guys too, once they see it happen.
Also, one of the things that might go into that calculation for the UFC is, how many fights are you going to get out of Conor McGregor anymore? If you get one more, I'll be fucking amazed.
If you do you even need him, really? Like, the guy hasn't fought in the UFC since 2021, right? And it seems like the UFC has been doing fine financially since then.
And you don't have any pay-per-views for him to sell. That would be the big thing he brings to you. It's not athletic excellence. It's not squeaky clean reputation. It's that he would bring those kinds of views and buys, and you don't have that incentive for yourselves anymore either. Plus, you look at him and you got to be going like, all right, man, if he has one more fight in the UFC, that will kind of surpass expectations. If he has two more, that would be way beyond anything you'd expect. No way he gets to 3. So why set this precedent? Because you couldn't count on the guy, you making this deal with him and being like, hey, keep it quiet. We don't want everybody else to know. Because he's going to be on Roblox, or he's going to be popping up on a red carpet somewhere, or somebody going to stick a camera in his face coming out of the club at 4 a.m. Something. He's going to want to brag about how he got more money out of you. That's his whole shit. Like, you are, whether you like it or not, you're going to be setting that precedent that somebody else can then point to. Now, you might just feel like you're totally comfortable telling whoever it is, you're not Conor McGregor. He is one of one. He gets to make those kinds of deals. But I think you're right that they will probably be like, we don't want to start going down that path, and it ain't worth it for us if we do.
I think you mean coming out of church at 4 a.m, right? Having been to a long midnight mass.
Yeah, drinking the sacrament all night long.
I don't know if you know this, but he's turned his life around.
Mm-hmm.
He's found our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He's training hard for the White House show. It's a squeaky clean Conor from here on out.
Good for him.
If you're Conor McGregor, let's assume just for play talk sake, just for make believe sake, let's say you're Conor McGregor and you are going to fight a couple more times. Are you better off not being in the UFC? Are you better off saying, hey, man, my contract's void. We will go to court over it. I will get out of it. I can go to Netflix and fight Jake Paul or whoever else, Nate Diaz. I don't care. And those will be my last fights. Are you better off if you're Conor McGregor? Is that a better deal for you, banking on the fact that you are still a draw? Which I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. But if I've learned one thing from hanging around combat sports as long as I have, it's that guys remain draws long after I would expect them to be able to draw money. So if you're Conor, is it worthwhile for you to make an issue out of this for the UFC and potentially, walk away if they won't come up off some cash?
Yeah, I think so, especially because like the difference for you would be huge, like for other people, maybe again, like, and people who might not have ever tasted how good the pay-per-view fountain can flow. But for you, if you're Conor McGregor, why even go through a training camp if you're not going to be talking about that kind of money? What's the worst that happens? The UFC says, no, we won't work with you. And then you probably have a pretty good footing to just be like, all right, then let me out of my contract. You've so far changed the terms of this contract. You got to let me out and I'll go box Jake Paul or some shit like that.
That would be some shit that would fall in Jake Paul's lap too. Every goddamn time, I think this is it for him. He won't be able to sell another one after this. Every time something else comes up, something like that would happen to Jake Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, I have a big spiel that I do right now, but I don't think I could get through it, frankly. So I will just tell you, we're on Patreon. Go over there to patreon.com/co-main event. Join us over there. We do shows damn near every day. We think you'll like it. We think you'll have fun. But right now, like we always do about this time, we're going to do a little bit of listener mail.
Listener mail.
First piece of listener mail this week comes to us from Big Unk, who writes, "Sweet princes, have you heard any rumblings about what media will be allowed at the White House event? Will Pete Hegseth throw out his back trying to impress Nina Drama? Is John Morgan going to bust out the turquoise number? I know it's still like 6 months away, but I'm curious if there is any buzz in the media. Do either of you have any desire to see this shit show in person? Love you both, and thanks for doing what you do." Honestly, my guess might be none.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out to be none.
Think they're going to be credentialing the normal crew and having them?
Or, I mean, I would not be at all surprised if the media includes such veteran journalists as Riley Gaines and Matt Gaetz and, Alex Jones, like shit like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just like right-wing pet media podcasters, shit like that, and no regular sports media, MMA media. That would not shock me at all. I mean, would I go if Yahoo wanted to send me and they would give me a credential to it? Absolutely. It's going to be weird as hell. I would love to go write about something weird as hell. That's great. That's always good copy. I'd be a little concerned that at some point somebody might throw a black bag over my head and I'd be like, oh, this was a ruse. It was a ruse, but yeah, like I would go, but I think it's way more likely that you see Nina Drama than you see John Morgan,
Yeah. I mean, I guess it could just be the normal MMA media crew gets invited also. Neither of those things would surprise me, but we keep going on and on about how we're dealing with limited space. We know that we're dealing with a high security environment. I wouldn't be surprised if this one's sort of a closed circuit, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the media will get to be in the park across the street with the 70, 80,000 or whatever that Dana White says they'll be able to get in the park over there.
Yeah, that part is, every time I hear him mention that, I kind of go a little bit like, what do you think the appeal is for that? Like you keep talking about it like it'd be just like a great deal for these people to get to like watch it on screen, and you'll probably have, I don't know, like Kid Rock perform or something at some point. Like I just kind of go like, I feel like I'd rather be at home if I'm gonna watch it on TV. But I don't know, maybe some of those people, they just are we counting on just like MAGA loyalists who just like want to be close to the heat?
Maybe it'll just be people pushing their baby carriages down the street in Washington, D.C., being like, what the hell's going on here?
Didn't exactly get a huge turnout for the military parade, so who knows?
Next question this week comes to us from Katy Perry's new boyfriend. Is that a Trudeau reference?
That's a Justin Trudeau reference, for sure.
Okay. Subject line: Paramount Plus is a minus for international fans. See what he did there?
Yeah, I get it.
Fellow Canadian here with a Paramount Plus subscription. I was just planning my weekend around this weekend's fight card, something I haven't done in a while, and I noticed us Canadians have to shell out the full pay-per-view price due to the outstanding rights deal with Sportsnet. I, like many, was excited for the prospect of paying less to be a fan, but alas, it was too good to be true. I wonder how many other fans feel alienated by this new deal. With my fandom diminishing year by year, this is poor timing. Have you guys heard about other countries experiencing something similar? Love one of you slightly more than the other, but I'll never tell. Signed, former PM. It's, you know what? God bless them. The international fans have been getting fucked for a while.
Yeah.
And it sucks that it would appear that many of them will continue to get fucked in the Paramount Plus era. But again, it's not like I can sit up here and tell you I'm that surprised.
Yeah, it is, though. I remember reading a thing long time ago, maybe it was in the New Yorker or whatever, and they were talking about American movie studios trying to tackle piracy, especially in places like China, where they're going like, all right, we're having a hard time convincing people to pay normal prices for our thing because piracy of our stuff is just so rampant there that everybody expects it that way. And they were like, do we drastically reduce the price so that at least we're getting something from it? And that seemed to be an option that they were seriously considering until they're just sort of like, wait a minute. People in the US find out that, people in China get what they get for $20 and they get it for 250. We're gonna have a problem on our hands. We have told them then that this thing is not worth as much as we've been charging you for it. And that in today's global economy, you cannot expect to keep that information from anybody for long at all. And so I could see how you get into like a certain mindset where when you find out, hey, wait a minute, we're just north of these people, we're in the same time zones, we are kind of the same fan demographic in so many ways. And now the Americans won't stop talking about how fucking psyched they are to get all this shit for $8.99 a month, and we still got to pay it. Like, you would have to really feel like you need to see these fights because they're throwing it in your face how they're screwing you. And maybe they're going, hey, it's sort of inevitable because of the timing of these deals we have, but that doesn't mean shit to you if you're being asked to shell out for it. And the other people who are basically the same fans you are not at all paying for it that way. Like, you're making it hard for them to say yes rather than making it hard for them to say no. And you're kind of you're basically telling the Canadians, like Dana White, classic Dana White fashion, sitting back in your easy chair being like, watch it or don't. If you don't like it, don't watch. That's kind of what you're saying to them.
Watch party at Folks' house is what I'm hearing you say.
Come on across the border. We're not doing great as a country right now. Can't promise that you'll make it back in one piece, but if you can get here, first beer's on me.
UFC for all in one price is kind of the only thing we got going right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of the only perk.
That's the best selling point the United States has to offer right now.
Next question this week comes to us from Sir Eustace Osprey.
Okay.
So probably want to jump on the Google for that one. Writes, John Anik gave his thoughts on how UFC programming might be more easily digestive for fans, and for some reason the fan response was, quote, bro just wants a shorter work day. You guys like sitting there for 10 hours on a Saturday watching 15 fights just to wait another week to do it again? I've been watching the sport for a long time, and when I was younger, this would have been my ideal Saturday. Now, at 30 years old, still a child, I'd love to be able to consume the event in 5 hours. The only comment of Annex I disagreed with was that they should cut the roster down. I think having 2 shorter events per week, one on Saturday, one on Wednesday, would help a lot with most fans being able to consume the content. Maybe have an Apex show on Wednesday with less significant matchups for the hardcores, and Saturday put on a big event. I know you guys would love shorter events, so please discourse and tell us why Anik should be running the UFC. I did see this from John Anik, and it was, John Anik will speak his mind every now and then. Mm-hmm. I thought that this was a pretty remarkably candid explanation from him, and I think one that a lot of us would agree on, that the shows are just too damn long. Naturally, the online response is going to be the worst possible thing in the world, the worst possible response you could think of. And in this case, it's just that John Anik of all people, wants to have a shorter work day, is what these people are saying. Can you imagine being John Anik, just going all over the damn world every weekend, a lot of years every weekend? Obviously, they've got a couple of different broadcast teams now at this point. The only one who seems to do any homework.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to say. Is he actually does a bunch of research on all the fighters, has a lot of talking points, a lot of things to say about them. So, like, yeah, I could understand if you tell me that, like, it don't matter to Rogan because he's just going to come up in here and be like, this guy's good. Like, don't matter to him. John Anik it does mean considerably more work for him. I mean, You're right that is like the most ungenerous take, is to be like, this is purely about Anik's self-interest trying to make it so that he gets the same money for less work. I don't think
Well,
that's the case.
if you're going to say one guy on the broadcast team is lazy, it's not that guy. That's all I'm
No.
saying.
I mean, I think like his reasoning for it is sound. I also though think that the UFC, like the roster didn't get this size by accident. The event schedule didn't get here by accident. Like, they are doing all this stuff for a reason because of the ways that it benefits them. And they're not going to trim it down or make a change just because it would make for a better viewing experience. That's clearly not going to happen. Like, the reason they want the roster that big is in part so that it makes it hard for any other competitor to really get going, because ain't no fighters for you to fucking sign. UFC keeps them all under contract. And they're getting a whole bunch of people really early in their careers before they can build up any sort of name that might give them a chance to ask for a better entry level contract. So they know why they're doing that. They're not that concerned. They're going to tell you, if you don't like the fucking 6-hour shows, don't watch, like they're wanting to create a huge library of content for their streaming partner, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they are not going to be swayed by that argument at all, even though I think you and I would agree it is sound,
Yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't mind a Wednesday event. I wouldn't mind splitting it up Wednesday, Sunday. It's it might even be easier watching for me of a Wednesday evening, kind of nothing else going on. Throw the UFC on, watch a little bit of that. So I endorse that plan. I think a couple of UFC events a week. Why not?
Yeah.
Last question this week comes to us from Tim Compton, who writes, so Derek Lewis went on a podcast and did one of his boo-boos, saying, and I quote, I ain't going to lie to you, I'm in the best shape of my life right now. The UFC provided me with some great peptides, and I've been taking it every day, and I've been feeling the difference. That was from, the quote is from House of Fight. Tim Compton includes a tweet here, link to a tweet. It was Derek Lewis on the Beast and the Cowboy podcast. So,
is that his podcast? Derek Lewis have a podcast?
It sounds like
Beast.
It. Yeah. He is the Beast.
Does he have a podcast with Donald Cerrone?
I don't know. I would assume not. Just letting the video play here for a second. Oh no, it looks like there's a guy wearing a cowboy hat, but it is not Donald Cerrone. I don't know who that is.
Okay. Well, at least though you turn that on. You heard about this thing called the Beast and the Cowboy, and you're like, well, by process of elimination, if I didn't know before, I can guess who the Beast is.
Yeah, and the Cowboy, for that matter. Tim Compton goes on, good for Derek, right? Only problem with that is peptides are fucking illegal. So Jeff Nowitzki had to jump on into the replies to clarify. It's been a while since we heard from Jeff Nowitzki, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it has.
Seems like his job has gotten easier over the last several years. Here's Jeff Nowitzki on Twitter, says, UFC did not provide Derek Lewis with peptides. Peptides are prohibited at all times under UFC and Athletic Commission rules. Derek is referring to an injectable compound that are third-party tested and certified as allowed at all times. So.
Okay. All right. But here's the thing. So you're telling me, you're going like, all right, hey, Derek misspoke. He doesn't know. It's weird. For one thing, peptides is such a specific term. It's not a term I see Derek Lewis reaching for if he just means like, they gave me some good shit, man. And he doesn't, like somebody must have said the word peptides to him. I would honestly be more willing to believe this explanation if Derek Lewis had said they're giving me steroids. Because then you would be like, okay, they're giving him some good shit that makes him feel good, and it comes in a syringe. He assumes it's steroids.
Yeah.
And then
now see, that sounds like something Derek Lewis would say.
Yeah. Peptides is such a specific term. I don't know how many fighters would even refer to peptides. I don't know if they would even know what it is unless somebody told them. And so that is a little bit weird to me right there on the basis of it. But also, even if we take just explanation on face value, where he's saying, hey, we're not giving you peptides, we're giving you injectable compounds that are third party
way
tested
less
and
specific
allowed
than peptides.
Yeah,
injectable compounds could damn near mean anything.
Even if that's the case, imagine you're going to fight Derek Lewis and you hear, oh, the UFC has been giving Derek Lewis injectable compounds. Well, where are my injectable compounds at, Playboy? Nobody even asked me if I wanted any injectable compounds. You guys, the organization is giving him stuff to inject into his body and he's loving it. It makes him feel great. I'm going to fight that guy? Hold on. Why are they giving him anything? Why is the UFC responsible for that? And if they're doing that, why aren't they telling me and giving me the option to do it? Like, it just opens up a conversation I don't think you really want to get into if you're the UFC. Like, that seems like the kind of thing you don't want to be in the business of. I'm surprised at this. And in a different era, or maybe even a different sport, I feel like it would be a big fucking deal.
It is a legitimate follow-up question to ask who all is getting the injectable compounds. Can everybody on the UFC's roster get the injectable compounds? Is Jeff Nowitzki like a cigarette girl out here being like, injectable compounds, get your injectable compounds here, just handing them out to everybody who wants them? Or are we only giving them to the guys whose names we know? That would be interesting to find out. I also want to point out that Rob Perez, Derek Lewis's coach, is also involved in this interview, and he also refers to them as peptides.
Okay.
So we got a couple guys saying peptides. But why would the UFC give Derek Lewis some banned shit? Doesn't make any sense for them to do that.
And also, if they were going to give him some banned shit, you'd think that at some point somebody would be like, hey, Derek, don't say nothing about this, man.
Well, it's like you said about Conor McGregor earlier in the show. It's one guy you don't want to do that to because he's not going to be able to keep his mouth shut about it. It's probably Derek Lewis, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for listener mail this week. If you have a question, comment, or concern that you would like to air to the podcast in future weeks, you know how to do it. Go to the website, co-mainevent.com. Click the link at the top of the screen that says email the podcast. That'll get you in touch with us. How much did UFC 324 lose when it lost Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes? And what else on this card seems to be of interest? We'll talk about that right after this. Well, Ben, Kayla Harrison got that pile of trash neck. Yeah. She had to drop out of her scheduled fight with Amanda Nunes at UFC 324. She's got to go have surgery. A bummer, because not only were we talking earlier in the show about how few UFC champions actually have title fights on the books, and this was one of them, but also because this was a big one. This is one we were all looking forward to. There had been some talk leading up to this event that perhaps Harrison and Nunes should have been the main event. And now it is off completely, and Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong has been promoted to the co-main event. Seems like a big loss to me, man, even if we're doing PLE shit now, where people will probably tune in on Saturday just because it's for the all-inclusive price at Paramount Plus when they otherwise may not have tuned in if this was a pay-per-view. Still, this is one everyone was excited about. It was one I was looking forward to seeing. I know it was one you were looking forward to seeing. This fight being called off, I think it does take some of the wind out of the sails of UFC 324. And as we talked about a little bit last week, kind of casts in doubt the future of the Kayla Harrison, Amanda Nunes matchup on the whole.
Yeah, I mean, they're both at a point where you want to go ahead and make a fight like this sooner rather than later, if you can. Kayla Harrison, I think, could reasonably get back for, if they really wanted to push it for that White House card or at some point the second half of the year. It's worth waiting to make this fight just because there ain't shit else going on at women's bantamweight right now that would really get people's attention. So what else are you going to do? If you have Amanda Nunes back, she's been off this long. What's 6 more months, I guess. It was a little bit of a blow to this one. You probably would have preferred to come out of the gates harder than, a fight headlined by an interim title fight, and that's it. And maybe if you knew you were going to do that, you would have leaned a little harder on, hey, does Sean O'Malley still have some fans out there? Let's get those people excited about his fight with Song Yadong. That's a good fight, honestly. It's a good bantamweight fight, a good kind of status check on both guys right there. Derek Lewis and his peptide's going to roll in there and fight, Waldo Cortez Acosta, who had himself a hell of a year last year. So like you got some kind of stuff on there. It just hurts you when people kind of take a step back and look at this card and be like, wait a minute, this would have been considered a shitty card in the pay-per-view era, kind of, or like it would have been considered a card definitely missing some stuff. Is this what we should just come to expect for our $8.99 subscription price?
I would think an intrepid journalist on the ground in Las Vegas on Saturday may want to ask Waldo Cortez Acosta if he was getting them peptides too.
Mm-hmm. Injectable compounds.
Was he also be getting injectable compounds from Jeff Nowitzki? That'd be interesting to know. Is everybody on them compounds at this point? I would think if you have the opportunity to get Kayla Harrison on the White House card, you would do it. Having an Olympic medalist on the card and someone who also is going to show extreme fealty to the current regime, Kayla Harrison might be who you want. If she beats Amanda Nunes, she'll cut a nice little promo about how we're making America great again, which would be good for the card. It'd be good for the content that they're trying to project there. We also got Ateba Gutierrez on this fight card, who is someone who has made a name for himself in the UFC, the silent assassin. He's out here kicking everybody's ass at middleweight so far. Hasn't lost a fight since 2022, has won all three of his fights, four if you count contender series in the UFC. So he's a guy that some people are excited about. And then you got Umar Nurmagomedov and Davison Figueiredo as the featured prelim on at bantamweight. So, some stuff of interest happening on this card, although not a ton of high profile stuff. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see the first show of the PLE era. I'll probably watch it. If this were a pay-per-view, I got to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't watch it live. But I think given the circumstances, given that we've already got the Paramount Plus subscription rolling, I'll probably sit down and watch it on Saturday, which maybe is evidence to suggest that this shit might work for the UFC.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see. You're getting a little rope now because it feels like the price of the brick went way down, which never happens. And I don't know how long that grace period will last for the UFC. I also, scanning this card and I go, oh shit, Al Capone himself, Nikita Krylov.
Yeah, I saw that too. Didn't know he was still around.
He is trying to break his streak of being totally fucking knocked out in the first round. A troubling streak for him to have developed. Remember that one where he basically went diving into a Dom Reyes punch, and then same shit happened to him in the first round against Bogdan Guskov back in July. It hasn't been back since then. Now coming in here, he's I think a slight underdog against Modestas Bukauskas, but this is one of those where it feels like we're waiting to see if Nikita Krylov ends another night face down on the mat, probably in the first frame, and then that might be about it.
Now that it's all over and done with on ESPN, can we say that for a long time, the morning after, you could find the pay-per-view fights for free on Hulu? Can we let the cat out of the bag about that? If you went into Hulu and did a very specific search for the event number and scrolled around through Hulu's terrible interface for a while, that you could usually find the pay-per-view fights for free the next day. Went on for a long time, longer than you would think. And then finally, someone must have found out about it because they stopped doing it. But biggest secret in the game there for a long time.
Someone must have found out about it and they went, oh shit. All right, let's flip that switch. Turn that one off.
I assume somebody got fired. An intern got fired or something. All right, that's going to do this week for the Co-Main Event podcast. If you are on the Patreon, we'll talk to you tomorrow for the live chat. If not, we will see you right back here next week. We will know whether or not we are crazy for thinking Justin Gaethje will beat that ass of Paddy Pimblett, beat this kid's ass. So check us out then. Again, patreon.com/co-main event. If you want to sign up over there, we would appreciate it. Thanks for listening, everybody. As for right now, we are done. We are through. We are out. I got to be honest with you. The only thing that I know about a root canal is that it is the example that everyone uses for some terrible dentist shit that can happen to you. So frankly, I was surprised that you could have a root canal and still do your podcast on the same day. I just in my imagination thought it was something much worse than that.
No, I mean, that's I think a thing that they're telling you. They're like, hey, yeah, popular media in the 80s and 90s would always use root canals to go to. It's really not that bad anymore. And they turned out to be mostly right. It was not that dissimilar from getting like a filling. You can make it through. Don't worry about it.
So you just missed a great opportunity to again say you're built different, to say that the dentist hadn't given a root canal to anyone like you before.
Maybe it's nothing to me because of how built different I am, you know? No big deal.